Hey everyone, welcome back to PEX News. Putin describes Ukrainian attacks as terrorist, rules out new round of negotiations. Russian President Vladimir Putin accused the Ukrainian leadership of being responsible for attacks targeting bridges in the Bryansk and Kursk regions, describing them as terrorist attacks aimed at undermining peace talks, according to Russia's TASS news agency. Putin stated that these operations were politically orchestrated by Ukraine and claimed that the current circumstances do not allow for a new round of negotiations with Kyiv. He further accused the Ukrainian side of relying on terrorism to achieve its goals. For its part, the Russian Foreign Ministry declared that all options are on the table in response to the Ukrainian attacks. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Ukraine rejected a proposal for a temporary ceasefire lasting 2 or 3 days, adding that direct talks with Kyiv had made some progress, especially on the issue of prisoner exchange, which could involve around 1,200 soldiers from both sides. In contrast, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky proposed a ceasefire to facilitate a direct meeting with his Russian counterpart. He announced his readiness to hold a summit that would include himself, Putin, former US President Donald Trump, and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to advance the peace process. Zelensky stated, "If President Trump supports this idea, we would be grateful. I believe President Erdogan would support it as well, and he has expressed interest in a 4-party meeting." On the ground, clashes between Russian and Ukrainian forces continue to escalate, with Moscow launching drone attacks targeting multiple locations within Ukraine. The Ukrainian military reported hundreds of Russian casualties, dead and wounded, over the past 24 hours due to dozens of counterattacks. At the same time, 7 Ukrainian regions, including Kharkiv, Sumy, Dnipropetrovsk, and Odessa, were hit by Russian drone strikes, resulting in injuries and significant damage. These attacks came after Kyiv claimed responsibility for bombing a bridge connecting Russia to the Crimean Peninsula, a move that followed previous Ukrainian attacks on strategic targets inside Russia. The Ukrainian military announced that it had destroyed drone control points, 8 artillery units, 9 Russian troop concentration areas, as well as an ammunition depot and several tanks and armored vehicles. It claimed Russian losses in a single day exceeded 1,000 dead and wounded. Amid these developments, Russian Security Council Secretary Sergei Shoigu arrived in North Korea to meet with leader Kim Jong-un in what Moscow described as a visit aimed at discussing the implementation of the comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries, suggesting potential further escalation on more. In Moscow, analysts viewed Putin's statements as a notable escalation, labeling the Ukrainian leadership as illegitimate and terrorist, which reflected his clear refusal to engage in negotiations with Zelensky, regardless of any proposed initiatives. Meanwhile, in Kyiv, the Ukrainian leadership continues to hope for a direct meeting between Zelensky and Putin as a path toward progress and peace efforts. Zelensky noted that a recent memorandum received from Russia did not significantly differ from Moscow's demands during the first round of Istanbul talks, calling it full of unacceptable diktats and ultimatums. With no clear signs of de-escalation or a diplomatic breakthrough, the confrontation between Moscow and Kyiv remains open to all possibilities amid growing concerns of a broader escalation in the coming days. Russia's response to Ukraine depends on political and military developments, but possible reactions can be divided into several levels. Military response. Escalated operations. Russia may continue or increase air and missile strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure, especially energy and transportation. Ground operations, ongoing battles in the east, such as Donetsk and Luhansk, or attempts at new incursions. Advanced weapons. Russia might use new weapons or harsher tactics, though likely stopping short of nuclear use. Political response. Withdrawal from agreements. Russia could pull out of international security or economic agreements in response to Western support for Ukraine. Territorial recognition. Open support for or annexation of more territories as seen in Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhzhia, and Kherson. Diplomatic offensive, launching media and diplomatic campaigns against Ukraine in the UN and other international forums. Economic response energy leverage, reducing or cutting gas and energy supplies to European countries as indirect pressure on Ukraine. And counter-sanctions, imposing sanctions on companies or countries supporting Ukraine. Cyber response, cyber attacks. Russia may launch cyber attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure or even on supporting countries like the US or Germany. Key points to watch: winter conditions, Russia might exploit winter to target infrastructure, increasing pressure on civilians. Support from China and Iran. Russian retaliation may have international dimensions through deeper cooperation with allies like Iran or China. Domestic public opinion. The level of internal protests or popular support in Russia could influence the scale and nature of its response.